My brother-in-law was getting married. My in-laws forced us to give up our master bedroom for the newlyweds. So, we quietly moved out. A week later, the news that we had just bought a $1.2 million house left them in absolute shock. My name is Kate. I am 36 years old. And I have been married for 8 years. For a long time, I believed that if I was reasonable, patient, and a good wife, my husband's family would eventually see my sincere heart. I was wrong. I never imagined that. Just because my brother-in-law decided to get married, my in-laws would force us out of the room we had renovated with our own money. Then, with complete shamelessness, they pushed us out of the house as if we were only temporary tenants. This story started one evening, when Ian, my husband's younger brother, unexpectedly brought his girlfriend home to meet everyone. He announced that they were getting married in a little over a month. The whole house, usually quiet, was suddenly filled with noise. Like a holiday. My mother-in-law, Gail, could not stop smiling. She rushed from the kitchen to the living room, repeating over and over. Finally, Ian is settling down. I have to throw a wedding so spectacular that no one can say a bad word about it. Ian was the youngest son, and the absolute golden child. He was almost 30, but he had never held down a steady job. He would work for a few days one month, then quit the next. Because the vibe wasn't right. He never had any money. But when it came to clothes, phones, and motorcycles, he always demanded the best. Every time he ran out of cash, he came home to complain to his mother. In the end, it was always my husband and me who had to open our wallets. My husband, Alex, and I had lived with my in-laws in their 3-story house since our wedding. Not because we did not want our own place. On the contrary, by our 3rd year of marriage, we suggested renting an apartment closer to our jobs, so the commute would be easier. But every single time, Gail flat out refused. She would always say, "If you leave, this house will be so lonely. A family should stay together. Stay close. And take care of each other." At first, those words touched me. I thought my mother-in-law truly loved us and wanted a united family. But after living together for so long, I finally understood the truth. What she called staying together actually meant that we would pay for most of the household expenses: electricity, water, internet, groceries, medicine for the parents, even fixing a leaky roof, replacing a broken water pump, and buying a new sofa for the living room. We paid for almost everything. I never threw it in their faces. But every dollar we spent did not fall from the sky. It was the result of my late-night overtime. Doing accounting reports, it was the result of Alex coming home exhausted from construction sites, only to stay up late reviewing blueprints. Our bedroom was on the 2nd floor. It was the biggest room in the house. When we got married, it was just an old room with peeling paint. The ceiling had mold from water leaks, and the window was jammed shut. Alex and I paid to renovate it. We waterproofed the walls. We laid hardwood floors. We built custom closets. We installed a split AC unit. We hung new drapes, and we bought a high-end bed with an orthopedic mattress. We did not do it to show off. We did it because, after a grueling day at work, we needed our own clean, quiet corner to rest. However, ever since Ian announced his wedding, I started noticing a shift in my mother-in-law's gaze whenever she looked at our room. She would often walk up and down the stairs, stop at our door, peek inside, and click her tongue. One day, she even dropped a heavy hint. "You know, if this room became the bridal suite, it would be magnificent." Wouldn't it? It's so spacious and bright. The guests would be so impressed. I heard her, but I tried to brush it off. I told myself she was only thinking out loud, but I already had a bad feeling in my gut. 3 days later, during dinner, everything became crystal clear. I had just placed the soup tureen on the table when my mother-in-law cleared her throat to get everyone's attention. My father-in-law, Arthur, sat there enjoying his glass of bourbon. Ian lazily crossed his legs under the table, glued to his phone, texting his fiancée, Sarah. Gail looked at Alex, and then at me, and said slowly, I was thinking, since Ian is getting married, he needs a proper master bedroom. When the bride's family comes over, we can't exactly tell them they'll be living in that tiny room at the end of the hall. I froze. Alex put his silverware down and asked bluntly, What are you trying to say? Mom, Gail smiled, but it was tight and strained. Look, I'm just putting this out there for you two to consider. The room you have right now is the biggest. How about you temporarily move into the storage room on the first floor if we clean it up a bit? It's perfectly fine to sleep in. A lump formed in my throat. That storage room on the first floor was damp and windowless. When it rained, water literally seeped through the walls. For years, it had only been used to store cardboard boxes, junk, and bags of dog food. But my mother-in-law said it so casually, as if she were asking me to pass the salt. Alex stared at his mother. His voice dropped into a serious register. Mom, you want us to give up our room? For Ian. Gail immediately frowned. I'm not kicking you out. Why are you overreacting? The house is small. The older siblings should make sacrifices for the younger ones. You two have been married for a long time. You can sleep anywhere. But Ian is just starting out. We need to keep up appearances for his future wife's family. Right then, Ian finally looked up from his phone and flashed a smug smile. Come on, Alex. Come on. Kate? I'm only getting married once in my life. How is my future wife supposed to live in my tiny room? I looked at him, then at my mother-in-law. A cold shiver ran down my spine. For years, we had paid the bills in this house. We put food on the table. We paid for every repair. We bailed Ian out every time he got in trouble. But the moment we needed a decent place to live, we were being shoved into a damp storage closet to make room for the golden child. Before I could speak, I heard Alex ask her, articulating every single word. And if we don't want to move into a closet, what then? Gail went quiet for a few seconds. She looked away. When she spoke, her voice was cold and indifferent. If you don't want to, then go rent a place for a while. After all, you both work. You have plenty of money. In that exact moment, it all clicked. She was not kicking us out directly, but every word she said was holding the front door wide open. Maybe, to them, we had never truly been family at all. Looking back to when I first walked into this house as a newlywed, things were not this tense. Gail used to be sweet. She would hold my hand in front of relatives, smile warmly, and say, from today on, Kate is like a daughter to me. Another daughter-in-law just means more blessings for the house. I was deeply touched. What woman, moving away from her own family, does not hope to be loved by her in-laws? After the wedding, Alex and I brought up the idea of moving out several times, not because we did not love his parents, but because our work hours were exhausting. Living closer to the city just made sense. But whenever I mentioned it, Gail shut it down completely. She would set her plate down, and her tone would sound like a gentle scolding. You just got married, and you already want to leave. People will talk. They'll say we don't get along. Stay here for a few years. You can save all that rent money. Then, You can buy a beautiful house of your own. Back then, Alex and I believed she was acting out of love. Alex even told me, "My mom is a little controlling, but she really loves us. If we stay here, we can save up, and my parents won't be lonely." I nodded. I believed marriage was not only about two people, but also about responsibility to both families. But some things only show their good side at first. It takes time for the hidden motives to surface. Just a few months after our wedding, all the household expenses started falling on us. At first, it was small things. Gail would say the gas bill needed to be paid, so I transferred her the money. Arthur would say a light bulb had burned out, so Alex would buy a new fixture. Then it was the internet, the electric bill, the water bill, groceries, supplements for his parents. It added up every single month. I tried to convince myself that, since we lived there, pulling our weight was normal. But then Gail developed a strange habit. She kept doing the grocery shopping. But at the end of every month, she would slide a little notebook across the table to me. Inside, she had written down every expense: beef, fish, fruit, cooking oil, dish soap, Arthur's blood pressure pills, her calcium supplements. She would push the notebook toward me with a smile and say, "I'm getting old. And our retirement is small. But you two are in your prime. Help your parents out a little. It's not right for parents to spend their pensions when they have a working son and daughter-in-law." I was not greedy. I swear. I was only hurt. She never once asked if we were struggling that month, or if we had big expenses of our own. I gave her the money, and she took it as her absolute right. Gradually, the word help disappeared. It became obligation. If she needed something, she called me. If something broke in the house, she called Alex. Meanwhile, Ian continued to live like a king, like a VIP guest in a hotel. When he came home, a hot meal was waiting for him. He tossed his dirty clothes on the floor, and someone washed them. If his motorcycle broke down, Gail called Alex to pay for the tow. If his phone screen cracked, he complained to me until I bought him a new one. One time, Ian got drunk with his buddies and smashed the windshield of a stranger's car. The damages were $3,000. He did not dare tell his father. He locked himself in his room. Gail sat in the living room, crying hysterically to Alex. "He's still young, he fell in with a bad crowd. You're his older brother. If you don't help him, who will?" Alex was caught between a rock and a hard place. He said, "Mom, I can't keep bailing Ian out forever. He needs to learn to take responsibility." Hearing that, Gail instantly changed her tone. She wiped her tears and looked at my husband like he was a monster. "How can you be so calculating with your own flesh and blood? I gave birth to both of you. How can the one who has it good sit back and watch his brother suffer?" In the end, Alex transferred the money. I did not blame him, because I knew he was trapped by family guilt. But from that day on, I secretly started keeping a spreadsheet of every single expense, not to throw it in anyone's face, but because I am an accountant, I know that when money is not transparent in a family, it eventually becomes a massive problem. The master bedroom remodel, the waterproofing, the water pump, the electrical work, the living room furniture, the contributions to family holidays. I kept every single receipt, just for the room we slept in. The total cost of renovations, furniture, and appliances was over $50,000. Meanwhile, we were secretly saving for our own plans. We figured that once we had enough, we would buy a nice house in the suburbs for around $1.2 million. We wanted a place that was comfortable, a place with guest rooms for both sets of parents, if they ever wanted to stay. I even told Alex once, when we get our new house, We'll leave this old one to Ian. He's going to get married soon. And he needs stability. Hearing that, Alex squeezed my hand and said, "The fact that you think so far ahead makes me love you even more." Honestly, I truly wanted to prepare a graceful exit for everyone. I did not need to fight over the old house. I did not need to compete with Ian. I only hoped that, in the future, everyone would have a decent place to live. And there would be no more friction. But life is ironic. The people we wanted to help were the first ones to trample on our patience, and the house I once saw as a place of family warmth had actually seen us as nothing more than a reliable ATM machine. After my mother-in-law brought up giving away our room, I started paying close attention to everything happening in the house. Before this, Sarah had already come over a few times. At first glance, she seemed very polite. Her manners were perfect. Yes. Mrs. Gale. Yes. Alex. Yes. Kate. But her eyes could not hide her calculating nature. Every time she walked into the house, she scanned the sofa, the furniture, the staircase, and every corner of the walls, as if she were appraising the net worth of her future in-laws. Sarah was always dressed to the nines. Perfect dresses, designer bakes, strong perfume. Every time she came over, my mother-in-law seemed to glow with happiness. She brewed fresh coffee. She peeled fruit. She served expensive pastries. It was a stark contrast to the exhausted face she made when I asked her to help me chop vegetables in the kitchen. She would smile sweetly at Sarah and say things that made my stomach turn. "Make yourself at home, Sarah. Once you're my daughter-in-law, you'll need to feel even more relaxed here." I did not hate Sarah at first. She was not officially part of the family yet, but there was one detail that made me extremely uncomfortable. Every time she went up to the second floor, Sarah would linger outside our bedroom door. At first, I thought she was only curious because our room looked brighter and more modern than the rest of the house. But one afternoon, right as I got home from work, I caught Sarah standing inside my bedroom with Ian and my mother-in-law. The door was wide open. Sarah was standing right in the middle of the floor, inspecting everything. The custom closets, the vanity, the window. She touched the soft blue drapes I had spent weeks picking out, and smiled. "Ian's room is gorgeous. When we get married, I want to change these drapes to cream. It'll look more elegant, and I think we can get rid of this desk. I want to put a nice makeup vanity right here." I froze in the doorway. Ian's room. This was my room. My husband's room. The place we had lived for 8 years. Everything in it was bought with our own hard-earned money. I looked at Ian, expecting him to clear things up, but he just leaned against the wall with his hands in his pockets, grinning as if it were completely normal. My mother-in-law was right there too. She heard and saw everything. But she did not correct Sarah at all. She actually nodded. "You like cream," Gail said. "Yes. It's a very clean color. It brings in a lot of light. We can change all of this. The most important thing is that you feel comfortable." Hearing that, I felt my blood run cold. This was not a misunderstanding on Sarah's part. Someone had intentionally made her think this was her room. That night, I told Alex everything. He took off his watch and stayed silent for a long time. I asked him, "Do you think your mom already promised the room to Sarah's family?" Alex did not answer right away. He looked around the room. He looked at the custom wooden closets he had measured himself. He looked at the AC unit he had bought when I got sick from the summer heat. After a few moments, he said quietly, "It looks like my mom has already promised it to her family." That sentence sat like a boulder on my chest. I would have preferred it if Gail had simply looked me in the eye and said she wanted to take our room for Ian. Instead, she orchestrated everything behind our backs. She let a total stranger critique our belongings as if she were touring a model home. Still, I tried to keep my patience. I thought I would wait a few days, let everyone calm down, and then have an honest talk with my in-laws. I never imagined that, just 3 days later, my mother-in-law would call me from the top of the stairs. She was holding her phone. Her face was tense, but her tone was as bossy as ever. "Kate, Sarah's family is coming over tomorrow evening to officially discuss the engagement, tidy up the room on the second floor, change the bedsheets, wipe down the glass on the closets. Don't let them walk in and see the house looking like a pigsty. I looked up at her. I asked, articulating every single word. Tidy up my room for what exactly? Gail. Gail frowned, as if I had asked something highly offensive. Well, so they can see where Ian and Sarah are going to live. Don't embarrass me. Kate. Sarah's family has money. We can't look like a bunch of broke losers. I turned to stone. She had actually turned our room into Ian's bridal suite. Without asking. Without a discussion. Without permission. As if everything that belonged to us could be confiscated with a single phrase. Don't embarrass me. Alex walked in from the garage at that exact moment. Hearing his mother's words, he tossed his car keys on the table. His voice was very calm. But I knew he was furious. Mom. A decision this big. Why didn't you talk to us first? Gail immediately raised her voice. Talk about what? This is your parents' house. How we arrange it is our right. You've been living here for years without paying rent. Why are you acting so dramatic now? Like someone is robbing you blind. Arthur, who was sitting at the dining table. Josiah, let it go. You're adults. Make a little compromise for your brother. He's only getting married once. I looked at my father-in-law, unable to hold back anymore. We've been compromising for years. Arthur, isn't that enough? Arthur avoided my gaze. His voice sounded irritated. The women in this house shouldn't bring up money right now. The wedding is right around the corner. Let's keep the peace and celebrate. Ian, lounging on the sofa with his feet on the coffee table, laughed sarcastically. You and Alex are throwing a tantrum over a stupid room. You're going to ruin my whole wedding. Right then. Ian's phone screen lit up. I caught a glimpse of a text from Sarah. I refuse to live in a tiny room when we get married. I'd be so embarrassed in front of my friends. Ian read it, completely unfazed, and quickly flipped his phone face down. A bitter taste flooded my throat. This was not just about a room anymore. It was about the fact that this entire family had never valued our efforts, our money, or our passions. In their eyes, we were nothing more than long-term renters, and when it came time to save face for the golden child, we were expected to know our place and disappear. That night, as the lights in the house began to dim, my mother-in-law called us into the living room. Her voice was no longer sharp. It had become unnaturally soft. But after living with Gail for so many years, I knew her perfectly. The softer her voice, the more outrageous her demand would be. Alex walked beside me. He touched the small of my back to give me strength. While I mentally prepared for an ugly conversation, the living room was full. Arthur sat in his wooden recliner. Ian sat next to him. Even Sarah was there, though technically she was not part of the family yet. When Gail noticed me looking at her, she quickly said, I asked Sarah to stay, so everything is out in the open. After all, she's going to be a daughter-in-law in this house soon. The issue with the room involves her too. I scoffed inwardly. The issue was about our room. Yet Sarah was invited to listen in. While we were treated like defendants waiting for a verdict, Gail cleared her throat and began in a sympathetic tone. Kate. Alex. I know you've lived in that room for a long time, but the situation is different now. Ian is getting married, and his future in-laws have money. They won't say it out loud, but they will definitely judge us. Alex did not interrupt her. He just sat up straight. I knew he was trying to hold his temper. Gail continued. If Sarah's family comes tomorrow and sees that Ian doesn't have a decent room, they'll think our family looks down on their daughter. If they have marital problems in the future, the shame will fall on us. This isn't just about Ian. It's about the family's dignity. I looked at her and asked bluntly. So, what do you want us to do? Gail looked like she had been waiting for that question. I was thinking, first, and you two move into the storage room on the first floor. I'll have someone clean it out. We'll put a small bed in there, and you can tough it out for a couple of months. Second, if you're uncomfortable, Go rent an apartment temporarily. We'll wait until Ian's wedding is over. Everything settles down. And then we'll talk. Hearing the words, storage room, my chest tightened. That room was damp and smelled like mildew. The walls had water stains. It was still crammed with old junk. But my mother-in-law told us to tough it out, as if we only needed a spot to crash on the floor. She even added, "I'm not kicking you out. I just want you to be understanding as the older brother. You have to step aside when your younger brother needs it." Suddenly, Alex let out a low laugh. A laugh with absolutely no amusement in it. It was so cold it gave me goosebumps. He looked at his mother. His voice perfectly measured. "We spent over $50,000 renovating that room. Waterproofing, custom closets, wiring, furniture. And now you're asking us to move into a storage closet so you can hand it over to Ian." Gail's expression changed instantly. Her voice lost all its softness. "You spent that money on renovations because you wanted to. I didn't force you to sign any IOUs. Why are you bringing this up now? When kids live in their parents' house, fixing it up to make it nicer is their duty. Stop overthinking it." Ian chimed in with a mocking tone. "Yeah. Exactly. Mom, you guys lived here for years without paying rent. Bringing up the renovations now is really weird. If we're keeping score, renting a room for 8 years isn't exactly cheap either." I turned to Ian. For the first time, I lost all desire to be polite to him. We didn't pay rent, but every single month, we paid for food, electricity, water, repairs, medicina, and even your debts. If you want to keep score, I have all the receipts. Ian's face twitched. Gail slammed her hand on the table. "Kate, you are a daughter-in-law, but all that comes out of your mouth is money. Money. And more money. Where is your dignity? Let me tell you something. A smart woman keeps the peace in the home. She doesn't write down every single penny just to shove it in her mother-in-law's face later." I froze. If this had happened a few years ago, maybe I would have lowered my head and apologized. But that day, after everything, I only felt a deep, profound bitterness. I did not regret the money. I regretted investing my kindness in the wrong place. Sarah, sitting nearby and watching the tension, pretended to play peacemaker. "Come on, Kate. Maybe you can just help us out this one time. When we have money, we'll remember what you did for us." Her words sounded soft, but there was no gratitude in her eyes. She looked at me as if the room already rightfully belonged to her. And I was only being stubborn. Before I could reply, Arthur slammed his bourbon glass hard onto the table. He looked at Alex with a raspy, unyielding voice. "This house will eventually be left to Ian anyway. You need to know your place. Don't destroy your relationship as brothers over one room." That sentence made Alex freeze. He felt his hand, resting on his knee, clench into a tight fist. All this time, even though his parents openly favored Ian, they had never explicitly said the entire house would go to him. But today, just to force us to give up our room, my father-in-law revealed their true intentions. Suddenly, everything made sense, and it hurt. There had never been a place for us in this house. We were just two useful tenants. We paid on time. We kept quiet. We could always be relied upon, but when it came time to divide things up and to save face for the golden child, we were immediately written off. Alex stayed quiet for a few seconds. Then, under the table, he grabbed my hand. His grip was warm, but incredibly strong. He lifted his head, looked at his parents, and said shortly, "Fina, we'll move." My mother-in-law thought she had won. She let out a sigh of relief, and her face instantly relaxed. Ian leaned back in his chair, smiling with satisfaction. Sarah looked down to inspect her nails, a slight smirk playing on her lips. But what they did not know was that we'll move did not mean we were going down to that damp storage closet. It did not mean we were going to rent a cramped apartment and wait for their mercy. In that moment, I knew with absolute clarity that we were leaving this house forever. And this time, we were never looking back. I did not say another word after Alex spoke, and silence hung over the living room for a moment. Then Gail sighed, acting like a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. She thought we had surrendered. She thought that, with a little pressure, we would submit and drag our belongings down to the closet. But she was wrong. As soon as Alex took my hand and stood up, I knew he would not compromise anymore. We went up to our room. When the door closed, I could still hear Ian and Sarah laughing downstairs, and Gail reminding Arthur to wear his best shirt the next day to meet the bride's family. I stood in the middle of the room that was so familiar to me. I saw the drapes swaying gently. I looked at the custom closets whose color I had picked myself, and suddenly, I felt completely empty. There are places we try so hard to turn into a home, but in the end, they still do not belong to us. Alex did not say much. He opened his desk drawer, pulled out a dark blue folder, and placed it on the bed. I went to the closet and took out all our important documents: bank statements, insurance policies, EID, our marriage certificate, tax returns, and the notebook where I had meticulously tracked every expense for years. It was not a thick notebook, but every page was proof of all the grievances I had swallowed in silence. Alex saw it in my hand and asked quietly, "You still have all that?" I nodded. I kept it, not to demand anything back, but so that if one day someone claims we lived off them, we'll at least know the truth about how we survived all this time. He stayed quiet for a few seconds. Then he pulled up a chair and sat down at his computer. The screen lit up, displaying the financial spreadsheet we had maintained for years. We had a clear plan. If all went well, by the end of the year, we would buy a $1.2 million house closer to the city, a place big enough to have guest rooms for both sides of the family, if they ever wanted to stay. I had been so excited that I had saved pictures of kitchen designs, gardens, and patios. I imagined myself planting flowers every morning. But in that moment, looking around the room being stolen from me, I realized something. We could not wait anymore. The longer we waited, the more trapped we would be by unexpected expenses. Help your brother out a little. Your mother needs money. Don't be calculating with your own flesh and blood. The money we saved was not only for a house, it was the result of our hard work, our youth, our future peace of mind. If we stayed here, who knew when we would ever get to start our own lives? Alex checked the numbers again. His eyes locked on the screen. After a few moments, he looked at me and said slowly, but firmly, "We're not waiting for the $1.5 million house. That $1.2 million house in the new gated community you looked at yesterday. If the paperwork is clean, I'm calling tomorrow to put down the earnest money." I was speechless. I had looked at that house once with a realtor named Tara. It was not as close to the city as our dream home, and not quite as massive, but it had incredible natural light. It had a small garden. It was located in a quiet, safe, upscale neighborhood called Oak Creek Estates. Most importantly, the title was clean. It was only a 20-minute commute to my office. And Alex's job was not far either. I liked the house, but at the time, we thought we would wait a few more months and find something even better. I asked him, "Are you sure?" Alex looked at me. "A home is a place where no one has the right to kick you out." That one sentence brought tears to my eyes. I sat next to him, looked at the screen, and nodded. "Okay, let's get it." Even though it was late, I called Tara. She answered with a sleepy voice. "Hey, Kate, what's going on at this hour?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Tara, the house in Oak Creek we saw yesterday, is it still on the market?" She seemed to wake up instantly. "Yeah. But there's an offer coming in." "Why? I thought you guys wanted to hold off." I looked at Alex and replied, "I want to see it again tomorrow morning. If everything looks good, I want to start the closing process immediately. There was silence on the other end. Then Tara said, "All right, I'll schedule you in. But buying a house is a massive decision. Are you both sure?" I answered very slowly. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. After the call, Alex asked me not to tell anyone in his family about our plans. He shut down the computer, packed the folder into a suitcase, and said, "Let them think they're forcing us into a closet. They'll find out when the time comes." I knew exactly what he meant. We did not need to explain ourselves. We did not need to brag. We did not need to prove anything to people who had humiliated us. This time, we had to move in silence. The next morning, I woke up early. As usual, when Gail saw me come downstairs, she immediately handed me a rag. Her voice sounded relieved. "Wipe down the closet mirrors in that room again. Then I'll put on the new bed sheets. Sarah's family is coming. Everything has to be spotless." I took the rag without arguing, since she thought I had already submitted. She started giving me even more chores. After I finished the mirrors, she ordered me to change the curtains, arrange the pillows, and clear all my personal items out of the room. Ian leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, talking very loudly on the phone with Sarah. He was doing it on purpose, so I could hear. "I told you, Baba. In this house, my mom runs the show. Our bridal suite is gonna be incredible. Kate is prepping it for us right now." I heard every word. I just laughed to myself. Some people think they are getting a great deal, when in reality, they are hugging an empty shell. At noon, Sarah arrived, seeing me folding bedsheets. She gave me a sickly sweet smile. "You're such a hard worker, Kate. When I live here, I'm going to have to learn a lot from you." I stared right at her and answered very quietly, "Yeah, take notes. There are some lessons you'll only understand once you actually live in this house." Sarah looked confused. I did not add anything else. That evening, Alex and I left the house using a work emergency as an excuse. Gail only waved her hand. "Go. Go. But hurry back tonight. There's a lot to do tomorrow." She had no idea that my purse held all our vital documents, and Alex's phone held an appointment confirmation with the title company. Sitting in that bright conference room, staring at the purchase agreement for a $1.2 million house, my hands trembled slightly. Not out of fear, because I knew that the second I signed my name, our lives would completely change. Alex took my hand under the table, just like he did the night before in front of his whole family. I signed my name. The first stroke was a little hesitant. The rest were firm. When I finished, I let out a very long exhale. For the first time in my years as a daughter-in-law, I felt like I truly had a way out. Not the exit of a loser. The exit of someone who had finally found the courage to walk away from a place no longer worth fighting for. And I knew that in a week, when word got out that we had bought a new house, that old house would not be nearly as peaceful as they imagined. The next morning, I woke up while it was still pitch black outside. Not because I wanted to be productive, but because Gail was pounding on our door at 5 in the morning. Her voice sounded frantic, as if there were an emergency. "Kate, wake up. Sarah's family is coming today. Hurry downstairs. Help me clean the living room. Prep the fruit platters. And make coffee, so they don't walk into a disaster zone." I opened my eyes, stared at the ceiling for a few seconds, and got up. I had barely slept, but my mind was unusually sharp. When I got down to the kitchen, Gail was already there, pointing everywhere. "The cups need to be the white porcelain ones. The fruit platter needs to be arranged like a flower. And change the tablecloth to a new one." She talked nonstop while I silently complied. Meanwhile, Ian and Sarah were at a photo studio, taking romantic engagement pictures for social media. Ian's phone, left behind on the dining table, kept lighting up with notifications from friends, congratulating him and complimenting his beautiful fiancée. I looked at the fruit platter I had just arranged, and suddenly found it hilarious. The person expected to save this family's reputation was still me, the one waking up at dawn to dust, wash glasses, and fluff pillows was still me, while the one enjoying the prestige, bragging about his happiness somewhere else, acted like everything in this house existed only to serve him. Around 9 in the morning, Sarah's family arrived. Her mother, Isabella, walked in first, wearing an elegant dark purple dress and a flashy gold necklace. Behind her were her two aunts. One carried a designer bag, the other had her phone out, filming every corner of the house as if she were conducting a home inspection. As soon as they walked in, Isabella scanned the living room and the staircase, then casually asked, "What a big house." Gail, whose name is on the deed. Gail smiled from ear to ear. "Ours, Isabella. But later, we'll pass it down to Ian. He's the youngest son. He needs stability when he gets married." I was carrying a tray of drinks out of the kitchen. Hearing that, my hands shook slightly. Alex, standing by the stairs, had a dark look in his eyes, but he did not say anything. We had agreed not to cause a scene in front of guests, but every word from my mother-in-law was like a knife, cutting away whatever shred of affection I had left. After the pleasantries, Gail invited Sarah's family to tour the house. She led the way with huge enthusiasm. "Come. Let's look at the kids' room. It's upstairs. It gets so much natural light. It'll be perfect for them when they tie the knot." I followed behind them in silence. That room was ours just yesterday, but today, rolling off my mother-in-law's tongue, it had magically become the kids' room. When they got upstairs, Sarah had just arrived from her photo shoot. She was wearing heavy makeup, red lipstick, and perfectly styled hair. Seeing her mother, she beamed. But upon entering the room, her demeanor shifted. As if she were already the lady of the house, she walked straight to the custom closet and threw the doors wide open without asking me. Inside, there were still a few of my work blazers I had not had time to pack. She pulled out a cream-colored dress and raised an eyebrow. "Oh, Kate, you haven't packed yet. I thought you guys already moved downstairs." The room went dead silent. I stared hard at Sarah. Before I could say a word, Gail rushed to intervene. "She's packing. Sweetie, your sister-in-law has just been very busy, so she isn't quite done. In a couple of days, everything will be spotless." Isabella nodded, then said a sentence that made my skin crawl. "It's so nice dealing with families who know their place. My daughter, as a daughter-in-law in this house, I just expects to be appreciated." Appreciated. What an ironic word. From morning until then, no one had asked if I was okay with this. No one had asked how Alex felt. No one had considered that the things in this room were our property. And yet, they had the nerve to talk about being appreciated, as if Sarah were the victim, and not us. During lunch, the situation became even more awkward. Gail intentionally seated Sarah's family in the places of honor. Ian and Sarah sat together. Arthur sat at the head of the table. I barely had time to pull out a chair next to Alex when Gail shot me a glare. "Kate, serve the soup to all the guests first. There's plenty. Why are you in such a rush to sit down?" I stood back up. Once again, I became the waitress at a dinner in my own family's house. One of Sarah's aunts looked me up and down and asked, "This is the older daughter-in-law, right?" "Gail, you can tell. She must handle all the housework. She's so efficient." Gail chuckled sarcastically, placed a piece of fish on Isabella's plate, and replied, "A yak of all trades. The important thing is she knows how to sacrifice for her younger brother. In this house, you have to follow the rules." Alex set his silverware down with a dry clack. The sound was not loud, but it was enough to make everyone turn around. He stood up and looked at his mother. His voice was serious, but crystal clear. "Mom, that's enough." Silence fell over the dining table. Gail's eyes went wide. Her face turned bright red at being interrupted in front of her future in-laws. What did you just say? Are you raising your voice at me in front of Sarah's mother? Ian immediately jumped to his mother's defense. Listen. Alex. Why are you creating such a toxic vibe? Sarah, pretending to be distressed, tugged at Ian's arm and whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. Leave it. Ian, if it bothers your brother and sister-in-law that much, it's fine if we live in the small room. I don't want to be the reason your family doesn't get along. It sounded like she was conceding, but I saw the corner of her mouth twitch upward. She knew full well that my mother-in-law would never allow her golden boy to be humiliated. And exactly that happened. Gail slammed the table, her voice sharp as a knife. Absolutely not. My youngest son is getting married. How can he live in a tiny room? We'd be the laughingstock of the neighborhood. No one in this house is going to make me lose face. I looked at Alex. He looked at me. In that moment, I knew our patience had completely run dry. Alex turned to his mother with icy calmness. Very well. If that's how it is, then we are leaving. Lunch ended in an atmosphere so tense you could cut it with a knife. As soon as Sarah's family left, Gail slammed the front door. She wore a dark scowl, acting as if she had suffered the greatest injustice in the world. Ian paced back and forth in the living room, muttering endlessly about how Alex had embarrassed him. Sarah stood next to him. Her earlier sweetness was gone. Only a furious glare aimed at the staircase remained, as if she feared her bridal suite was in jeopardy. I was not going to argue anymore. Neither was Alex. He just turned to me and said very quietly, "Let's go pack our bags." Honey. It was just a short phrase, but I knew that tonight. Those were not words spoken in anger. Tonight, we were truly leaving this house. When we dragged our suitcases to the center of the room, Gail yelled from downstairs, "Pack up. Let everyone see how brave you are. Just leave already. Stop making threats. This isn't a flea market." She intentionally raised her voice so Ian and Sarah could hear, as if trying to prove she was still in control. I heard every word, but my hands kept calmly folding clothes. At first, Gail thought we were only taking a few changes of clothes for dramatic effect. Ian even laughed sarcastically and told Sarah, "Leave them. Bob, my brother will come down soon to beg Mom for forgiveness." But half an hour later, when Alex started unmounting the TV from the wall, taking apart his computer setup, and dismantling the custom wooden desk in the corner, the laughter downstairs stopped. Ian was the first to run upstairs. He froze in the doorway, eyes wide. "Hey, Alex. Where are you taking that desk? That was going to be my home office when I got married." Alex did not even turn around. He kept unplugging the cables behind his monitor. "I paid for it, so I'm taking it." Ian was speechless. He looked back, searching for his mother to defend him. Gail rushed into the room, seeing it being emptied out. Her face fell. "Alex, what are you doing? Leave those things for your brother. He just got married. He has a lot of expenses coming up." I was taking down the curtains, hearing her. I turned around, for the first time in years. I looked my mother-in-law straight in the eye without lowering my gaze. "We are not obligated to fund my brother-in-law for the rest of his life." At those words, silence swallowed the room. Gail could not believe I had dared to speak like that. Ian turned beet red. Sarah, standing behind him, started showing genuine horror, because the room she thought she was going to walk into was becoming completely empty. I took down the curtains and folded them. Alex dismantled the air purifier. I packed the nightstand lamps, my jewelry boxes, the wall art, and even the orthopedic mattress I had bought with my corporate bonus. Alex also called a moving company. With every piece of furniture carried out, Gail's face grew sourer. She looked at the AC unit, and then at the dresser, and grumbled. "This house sheltered you for years, and now you're nickel and diming your own parents." Alex stopped, turned to his mother, and spoke seriously. "You raised me until I was an adult, and I'm grateful for that. But we renovated this room with our own paychecks. When things broke in this house, I fixed them. When Ian had debts, I paid them. When you took my money, you didn't call me calculating. Now that we are taking our own property, you call me ungrateful. Arthur came up from the first floor. Having heard the argument, seeing me holding a box, he smashed the bourbon glass he was holding against the half landing. How dare you speak to your mother-in-law like that? Kate, don't think that just because Alex defends you, you can say whatever pops into your head. Alex stepped in front of me to shield me. Dad, when we sank money into renovating this house, you didn't say a word. When we paid for the electricity, water, food, and Ian's debts, you didn't say a word either. Now that we're taking what is ours, why are you complaining too? The tension was like a tightly pulled guitar string. Outside, some neighbors had opened their doors out of curiosity. Some peeked over the fence, others pretended to sweep their driveways. But their eyes were glued to our house. Gail, always obsessed with appearances, quickly changed tactics when she saw outsiders watching. She sat on the edge of the bed frame, the only thing left of the bed. Tears welled up in her eyes. Oh my God, I raised a son, only for him to take his wife away and humiliate me in front of everyone. What did I do wrong to deserve this? Alex, if this had happened earlier, maybe Alex would have softened, but that night, he calmly zipped up his suitcase. He did not yell. He did not get angry. He simply delivered a sentence that silenced everyone. I used to plan on buying a nice house and inviting you both to live with us, Mo and Dad, but now, I realize there's no need. Gail turned to stone. The tears had not even dried on her face, but the look in her eyes changed. Buy what house? Alex did not answer. Neither did I. That silence alarmed her the most. She immediately let out a sarcastic laugh, trying to hide her nerves. You probably don't even have enough for first month's rent. And you're talking about buying a house. You'll see. When you're out on the street, you'll realize making money isn't that easy. I walked past her carrying a box of documents. I felt something strange in my chest. But it was no longer pain. Maybe because when someone truly decides to leave, humiliating words no longer have the power to keep them. Almost at 10 at night, the moving truck arrived. Ian and Sarah stood off to the side, leaning against the wall. Their faces showed a mix of outrage and regret. Their dream bridal suite was now nothing more than an empty room, with nail marks on the walls and the smell of fresh dust. Gail stood on the stairs, gripping the banister, watching us as if she still believed that the next morning we would come crawling back to beg for forgiveness, but that tomorrow she imagined would never come. Alex walked down the stairs, dragging 2 suitcases. I walked beside him, clutching the bag with our most important documents. As we walked out the gate, Ian yelled behind us, "Leave, and never come back," begging us to let you in. Alex did not even turn around. He just squeezed my hand tighter. That night, under the dim light of the street lamps, we left the house where we had lived for 8 years. Behind us, his entire family watched with smug, disdainful glares. They thought we had lost. What they did not know was that this was the night we started taking back control of our lives. After we drove off that night, the old house was not as peaceful as Gail imagined. I found out later, not because I cared, but because everything started coming to light exactly as Alex had warned. Some things look beautiful from the outside, but once you peel back the layer of varnish paid for with someone else's money, their true nature is quickly exposed. That night, after the moving truck left, Ian dragged his suitcase up to the second floor. Sarah did not waste time either. She grabbed her makeup bag and a few new nightgowns, then excitedly walked into the room she thought was already hers. But as soon as she opened the door, her smile froze. The room was no longer the one she had seen. There were no soft blue curtains, no flat-screen TV on the wall, no air purifier, no well-lit vanity, and, of course, no orthopedic mattress. There was only an empty room with paint outlines, dangling wires, and a wall by the window showing water stains. We had removed the decorative wallpaper, exposing the old, uneven paint. The custom closets, which Sarah had assumed were family property, turned out to be only a wooden frame. The sliding doors, tracks, and motion sensor lights had been custom ordered by Alex, and we took every removable part. Sarah stood frozen in the middle of the room, raising her voice. "Hey, didn't you say this was your room?" Ian mumbled. "Yeah. Of course it's my room. In my house. It's just that Alex and Kate lived here temporarily, so they had a lot of their own stuff." Sarah glared at him furiously. "Temporarily lived here for 8 years. And did a full remodel. Don't treat me like an idiot. This room was in perfect condition yesterday." Ian started getting angry, probably because his pride was bruised. He threw his suitcase on the floor. "You just got here, and you're interrogating me like a cop. I told you. If they wanted to take their junk, let them take it. We'll buy new stuff." At that moment, the old AC unit still hanging on the wall started making a deafening rattling noise. Then it completely shut off. The room, which used to be cool, suddenly became stuffy. Sarah looked up, deeply dissatisfied. "Is that the AC unit you said you guys bought brand new last year?" Ian fell silent. The new unit Sarah had seen before had been removed by Alex, because the receipt and warranty were in his name. The one on the wall now was the old unit that came with the house. It broke down constantly. Ian opened the drawer of the old desk. Looking for the remote, he only found a forgotten repair invoice. It clearly stated the customer's name, Alexander. Sarah snatched the paper from him. "Read it," and laughed bitterly. "Perfect. From the AC to the furniture. Everything is in your brother Alex's name. So what exactly is yours in this room?" Ian, furious. Ian snatched the paper back, crumpled it, and threw it in the trash. "This is all that cheapskate Kate's fault. We're supposed to be family, and she dared to take everything. How petty." But Sarah was not someone easily fooled. That evening, her mother video called her to see the bridal suite. She probably still believed her daughter was going to live in a beautiful room, just like they had been promised. Sarah, gritting her teeth, panned the camera around the room. On the other end of the line, there was silence. Then Isabella frowned. "Why is the room so empty? It didn't look like this yesterday." "Isn't this your room?" Sarah shot a sideways glance at Ian. Her voice was full of anger. "I'm asking myself the exact same question. Mom, they said their family had money. They said the bridal suite was ready. And now his brother took everything we're left with an empty room that looks like a cheap motel." Isabella's face darkened. "Sarah, I find out exactly what's going on. I am marrying my daughter off, not sending her to be a laughingstock. If they're dishonest about something like a bedroom, who knows what else they're hiding." Ian got so mad that he snatched the phone from Sarah and hung up his scrather. Sarah screamed at him. "What are you doing? Are you scared my mom is going to find out the truth?" The argument echoed down into the living room. Gail rushed upstairs. As soon as she walked in, she clutched her chest. "May God. You've only been here a couple of days, and you're already fighting over a room. This is all Kate's fault. She did this on purpose to ruin your wedding. She's jealous that you're getting married. That's why she took her things. To embarrass us." If this had happened a day earlier, maybe Sarah would have believed her. But after what she saw, she looked at Gail with a completely different expression. Gone was the sweet tone. Gone was the fake politeness. Sarah spoke slowly. "Gail, stop blaming Kate for everything. I just want to know who actually has money in this house. If Alex remodeled the room, if they bought the furniture, and if they also paid the household bills, then everything you told me and my family, was it the truth, or just showing off?" Gail was speechless. Her face froze for a moment, like a stage actress when the curtain suddenly drops. Ian turned red and yelled at Sarah not to dare speak to his mother like that. But Sarah did not back down. She grabbed her purse, turned toward the stairs, and delivered her final verdict. I'll go ask the neighbors. Sometimes outsiders are more honest than the people living inside the house. That sentence made Gail truly panic for the first time. She knew she could fool her future in-laws with words, but she could not fool the neighbors who had spent years watching Alex and me silently carry the burden of that house. Once Sarah became suspicious, the perfect image Gail had painted for Ian began bursting at the seams. A week after we left the old house, we officially closed on the new property. From signing the contract to getting the keys, everything happened so fast, it felt like a dream. It was not the dream home we had originally planned, but the moment I stepped inside, my heart filled with absolute peace. It was located in a quiet gated community in Oak Creek Estates. With 24-hour security, there were tree-lined avenues along the main street. There was a small garden, perfect for my bougainvillea pots, and a little patio table for tea. After getting the keys, Alex stood in front of the door for a long time. He did not say anything, he just gently ran his hand over the wooden door, which still smelled like fresh paint. I knew he was emotional too. For years, we had lived with our hearts in our throats. We had to tiptoe around, so we would not offend anyone. We had to guess what might anger Gail. We had to anticipate what new mess Ian would create. Now, a door to our very own life was opening right in front of us. I held the electronic key fob in my hand, feeling a slight tremble. Alex looked at me and smiled gently. From today on, no one has the right to ask you to leave here. I did not cry. I just nodded. It was a happiness so profound that tears were not enough to express it. We were not planning to brag to anyone. After all the drama, I only wanted peace. But that day, maybe out of sheer joy, I took a simple photo, my hand resting on Alex's hand against the door, with our new keys underneath. I posted it on social media with a short caption, "New beginnings." No location tag, no mention of the price, not even explicitly stating that we had bought a house, but I missed one detail. The keychain had the logo of a well-known gated community. An old friend of mine, who worked as a realtor, saw it and commented, "Congratulations on the new home. That neighborhood is amazing. Buying a place in Oak Creek is incredible." It was just a casual comment, but its ripple effect spread faster than I could have imagined. First, a couple of friends texted me. Then, one of Alex's cousins left a surprised emoji under my photo. Shortly after, an acquaintance of Gail's called her. I do not know whether it was malice or gossip. She told her, "Oh, Gail, things must be going so well for you. Your oldest son bought a massive house, and you didn't even tell us. They say houses in that neighborhood go for over $1.2 million in a matter of hours." The news that we had bought a $1.2 million house spread to every relative on my husband's side. That evening, Alex's phone would not stop ringing. Gail called countless times. The screen lit up, faded, and lit up again. 30 missed calls in an hour. Alex looked at his phone, muted it, and placed it face down. He said nothing. And I did not ask. There are calls you do not need to answer to know exactly what they are going to say. Ian was not as patient as his mother. He texted Alex directly. "Seriously? You bought a house?" Soon after, another text came in. "A $1.2 million house? If you had that kind of money, why didn't you say anything?" I read those messages and laughed bitterly. When we lived with them, he never asked if we were tired. He never asked if we needed anything. But the second he found out we could afford a house, his first question was, "Why didn't you tell the family?" That evening, when I finished work and went down to the office lobby, I saw Gail and Arthur waiting for me. Gail wore a silk blouse, the one she saved for special occasions. Her hair was messily tied back, and she was not as heavily made up as usual. Seeing me, she practically ran over. Her voice was so desperate she forgot basic manners. "Kate, where is the house?" Take us to see it. I stopped and looked at her for a few seconds. It was the first time she had spoken to me in such a frantic tone. Not to give orders, not to accuse, but to demand to see something she believed she had a right to. I answered with complete calm. My house is not your house. Gail froze. Maybe. In the 8 years I was her daughter-in-law. She had never heard me speak to her like that before. Just one scowl from her was enough to make me keep quiet. But things were different now. I did not live under her roof anymore. Arthur, seeing the tension, cleared his throat. His voice sounded softer than usual. Kate, you have a right to be angry, but don't cross the line. At the end of the day, we are your husband's parents. Buying such an expensive house and not telling us, if people find out, it'll look very bad. It'll look like the family is broken. I stared right at him. You kicked us out. And now you're talking to me about a broken family, when you forced us out of our room. When you wanted to shove us into a storage closet. Did either of you treat us like family? Arthur fell silent. Gail pressed her lips together. Right then, a coworker of mine walked out. He saw me with 2 older people, politely said hello, and casually mentioned, "Hey, Kate, I heard from HR. You bought a place in Oak Creek Estates. Wow. What a spot." Hearing the words Oak Creek Estates, Gail's face changed drastically. She turned to me with a look mixing suspicion and panic. Oak Creek. You really bought a house in Oak Creek? Her voice was barely audible. The arrogance she had ambushed me with had completely vanished. I did not answer right away. I just looked at her. I looked at the woman who thought we could only afford to rent some cramped little room. The same woman who sarcastically asked if we had enough money for first month's rent. Now, hearing about the $1.2 million house. She finally began to understand that we were not as broke as she thought. But more than the price tag, what scared her was not that we were richer than she imagined. It was the realization that from this moment on, the cash flow sustaining her old house was gone. No one would pay the electricity and water bills. No one would leave grocery money at the end of the month. No one would quietly transfer funds every time Ian got into trouble. And there would be no daughter-in-law named Kate to boss around, calling it her duty. After that evening, Gail's attitude changed drastically. The angry messages disappeared. They were replaced by sweet, syrupy phrases. Kate, how are you? I'm sure you have a lot to do settling into the new house. Need any help? One day, she even sent me this message. Kate. That time was just a momentary lapse of judgment. You're the older daughter-in-law. I'm sure you understand. Forgive me. I read it and felt ice cold. Someone who is truly sorry remembers exactly how they hurt the other person. But Gail never once mentioned kicking us out. She never mentioned the storage closet. She never mentioned her contemptuous remarks. She was just circling around, trying to reel us back in. Like someone who had lost her wallet and was desperately searching for a way to get it back. Alex read the message on my screen and smiled bitterly. My mom doesn't miss her son. She misses the person who paid the bills. I did not reply. Deep down, I knew it was true, but hearing it from my own husband still hurt. The day we hosted a small housewarming party, I only invited a few close friends and coworkers. I did not invite my in-laws, not out of hatred, because I wanted this new chapter to begin in peace. But around 10 in the morning, the doorbell at the gate rang endlessly. I looked at the video intercom screen. Gail, Arthur, Ian, and even Sarah were standing at the gate. Behind them was a moving van, packed with massive suitcases, pillows, blankets, pots, and buckets. I turned to stone for a few seconds. Alex walked over to look at the screen, and his face turned rigid. He walked out through the side door, but he did not open the main gate. As soon as Gail saw him, she flashed a grin from ear to ear, acting as if absolutely nothing had happened. What a beautiful house. I always knew my son was destined for great things. Kate is so lucky she married you. Alex. I heard that through the intercom. and a lump formed in my throat. The same person who mocked us when we dragged our suitcases out, asking if we could afford rent. Now, proudly bragged in front of $1 million home. Without waiting for an invitation, Gail pointed to the moving van and said brazenly, "It would be a shame to let such a big house sit empty. Your father and I are going to move in here, to liven the place up a bit. Besides, as the oldest son, if you live separately and leave your parents in the old house, what will people say?" I was dumbfounded by the audacity. Alex looked at the pile of belongings, then at his mother. "What is the meaning of this?" "Mom." Gail smiled as if it were the most logical thing in the world. "I thought it all through. Your father and I will live here with you. We'll leave the old house to Ian and Sarah. That way, everyone is happy. Your house is huge. Adding 2 elderly people won't be a problem." Alex's voice grew hoarse. "And Ian?" Gail rushed to answer. "Your brother will stay in the old house, since he's getting married. He needs a stable place. As the older brother, you have to understand." I looked at Ian through the screen. He stood behind his mother looking arrogant, assuming all these arrangements were his, by right. But Sarah was different. Since arriving, she had not said a word. She stood with her arms crossed, glaring at Gail with a mix of contempt and rage. Hearing that Ian would stay in the old house, Sarah suddenly let out a cold laugh. "Live in that old house again? I'd go crazy." A dead silence fell over the garden. Gail spun around sharply. "Sarah, what are you saying? We are at your brother-in-law's house. Don't speak nonsense." Sarah opened her purse, pulled out a stack of papers, and threw them onto the stone table on the porch. The papers scattered everywhere. Payday loan contracts, unpaid bills, screenshots of messages. Sarah's voice trembled with anger. "Gail, how long were you planning to keep up this charade? Ian owes money to loan sharks, payday lenders, and gambling sites. The total debt is over $150,000. You all knew, and you hid it from my family." She drew a shaking breath. "You didn't kick Alex and Kate out of their room just for the wedding, did you? You were terrified the loan sharks would show up on the day of the engagement party." Gail turned pale. Arthur looked stunned too. Evidently, there were debts even he did not know about. Ian rushed to grab the papers, screaming at Sarah. "Did you go through my phone? Were you spying on me?" Sarah slapped Ian right across the face. The smack echoed sharply in the courtyard of my new house. If I hadn't checked, I probably wouldn't have realized until the wedding day that my husband is nothing but a mountain of debt. Your entire family lied to me. From the room, to the house, to you. It's all a lie." Gail, in a panic, grabbed Sarah's arm and sobbed. "Calm down, sweetheart. Men make mistakes sometimes. After the wedding, he'll change for sure. We can settle the debts." Sarah yanked her arm away. "Who will settle them? You, or were you hoping Alex and Kate would pay them off?" That sentence pierced Gail like a dagger. She immediately looked at Alex with tear-filled eyes. "Alex, did you hear? Your brother has lost his way. But he carries your blood. Help him this one time. $150,000 isn't that much money for you anymore." Alex stared at his mother for a long time. Then he laughed with such bitterness that it physically hurt me. "When you threw us out on the street, did you help us, even once?" Gail went quiet. Before she could speak again, the sound of motorcycles braking aggressively echoed from around the corner. 3 or 4 shady-looking men stood outside the gate. One started banging violently on the iron bars. "Ian, come out here and pay your debts. Did you think we wouldn't find you?" Ian immediately backed away, pale as a ghost. Sarah laughed sarcastically while tears rolled down her face. "Say, that old house of yours isn't a love nest anymore. It's a meeting spot for debt collectors." Gail, terrified, looked pleadingly at Alex. "Son, open the gate. Let me in. Don't let them see me like this." I stepped forward. I looked at the men outside the gates, then at my husband's family, putting on this shameful spectacle in the front yard of my new home. This time, my voice did not waver. Ian's problems are his to solve. This house is not a sanctuary for debtors. Then I pressed the button on the remote to close the main gates completely. The iron bars slowly slid shut right in front of Gail's astonished eyes. Outside, the debt collector's yelling grew louder. Gail was screaming Alex's name. Ian was grabbed by the collar right on the sidewalk. I stood in the yard of my new home, listening to my own heartbeat. It was surprisingly calm. For the first time in years, I did not feel like the bad guy. I only felt immense relief. Finally, the door to my life knew exactly when it needed to close. After the commotion that morning, I thought Gail would learn her lesson, but I underestimated the stubbornness of a mother who had spent her life covering for her youngest son. That evening, after the debt collectors dragged Ian back to the old house for a talk, Gail practically lost her mind. The image of respectability she had always maintained in front of the neighbors and Sarah's family had crumbled in a matter of hours. Alex's phone would not stop ringing. At first, Gail was crying. "Alex, please, help your brother. He was stupid. He made a mistake. But he's your brother. If you don't help him, who will?" Alex sat at our dining table. A plate of food that had already gone cold sat in front of him. He stared at his phone screen for a long time before answering. His voice was so calm it hurt. "I'm not paying off gambling debts for the man who threw me and my wife out on the street." There was silence on the other end. Then Gail's voice turned shrill. "How can you be so cruel? Alex, that's your brother. When you were little and got sick, he used to run and get your medicine. Now he's lost his way. And as the older brother, you're going to let him be killed." Alex closed his eyes. "Mom, I don't use our childhood to manipulate me. Ian isn't a kid anymore. He's almost 30. He racked up debts. He gambled. He scammed people. He needs to take responsibility." I sat next to him and did not interfere. There are conversations where a wife only needs to be there, so her husband knows he is not alone. But Gail would not give up. When she failed with Alex, she started blaming me. "This is all Kate's fault. Ever since you married her, you have no feelings left. She brainwashed you into abandoning your home and turning your back on your parents. Now she's convincing you to let your brother get beaten in the street." I clenched my fists slightly, but I did not say anything. I simply turned on the call recording function on Alex's phone and left it on the table. Since the night we were kicked out, I had learned something. With people who twist reality, silence is not enough. You need proof. In the following days, the old house turned into a boiling cauldron. The debt collectors would not stop showing up. The neighbors were gossiping. Sarah's family completely stopped caring about appearances. Sarah called me one day. Her voice no longer sounded arrogant. It sounded exhausted. "Kate, I want to ask you something honestly. Did Ian ever borrow money from you guys and not pay it back?" I answered bluntly. "More than once." Sarah went quiet. Then her voice trembled with anger. "I just found out he doesn't only owe over $150,000. He also forged Arthur's signature to take out another loan. The paperwork has his dad's ID information." At first glance, the signature looks similar, but I showed it to a friend, and they said it's most likely forged. That news stunned me. I knew Ian was irresponsible, but forging his own father's signature crossed every boundary. He was no longer a spoiled child. He was a black hole dragging the entire family down. Sarah's family was furious. Isabella called Gail directly. "Listen to me, Gail. If all these debts are not settled before the wedding, and you cannot prove Ian can be trusted, there will be no wedding. My daughter is not marrying into a family where thugs could kick down the door any day." Gail was trapped. On one side, the loan sharks. On the other, Sarah's family. And on the third, her pride, which she had flaunted for months. Finally, she decided to use the old house. The same house she had declared was Ian's home. The same house she used as an excuse to kick us out. Now she wanted to mortgage it to pay off her youngest son's debts. The next morning, she and Arthur went to the bank. I found out because Alex got a call from Carl. From the contracting company that remodeled the second floor, Carl asked. Hey, Alex. The bank is checking some invoices for the house renovations. Is it true you signed off on the payments and acted as guarantor for some materials? Alex frowned, standing next to him. I felt a bad feeling. Back then, Gail had been in a huge rush to get the remodel done, but did not want to pay up front. Alex signed a few promissory notes. At the time, his mother told him, "Sign it for now. Son, I'll pay you back next month." But in the end, we paid for almost everything. There were some extra materials where Alex acted as guarantor because he knew the suppliers. The contracting company still had those documents on file. The bank did not say the house was under a lien, but to issue a fast loan against the property, they needed to verify that there were no outstanding debts for major renovations, especially waterproofing, electrical wiring, structural materials. Invoices still open under Alex's name. In other words, Gail's plan to save Ian was blocked by the exact same expenses she had dumped on us in the past. That evening, Gail called Alex. She was not yelling anymore. Her voice trembled. Alex, go to the bank. You need to sign a document for me. It's just one signature. Son, if you sign it, everything will be fixed. Alex cut to the chase. One signature, so you can mortgage the house and pay off Ian's debts. Silence. That silence was all the confirmation he needed. A few seconds later, Gail raised her voice. Why are you asking so many questions? It's your parents' house. I just need you to state that the expenses for that remodel have nothing to do with you. Alex chuckled quietly. When it was time to pay, you said it was the older son's duty. When it's time to mortgage the house, you say it's your house. If it's your house, then deal with it yourselves. Gail gasped. Do you really have the conscience to watch your brother be hunted by loan sharks? Alex answered measuredly. I have the conscience to let the person who made the mistake face the consequences. And Mom, you should learn to handle Ian's mistakes instead of forcing the whole family to pay for them. He hung up without yelling. Without hesitating, I looked at my husband. For the first time, there was no conflict in his eyes between his role as a son and his role as a husband. He had stepped out of the cycle of manipulation that Gail used to bind him with tears, filial duty, and blood ties. But I knew Gail would not give up that easily. When someone can no longer force you with guilt, they try to use other people. And the real storm was just beginning. My suspicions were not wrong. When Gail failed with Alex, she pulled out her favorite weapon. What will the relatives say? She knew Alex cared about the family's name. She knew that, for years, I had tried to avoid looking bad in front of the elders. She thought that, if everyone turned against us, we would eventually cave. But her strategy backfired. That morning, my phone would not stop buzzing. The family group chat on Alex's side was blowing up. Gail had sent a massive paragraph. The tone was pure melodramatic victimhood. She wrote that, ever since her oldest son got a nice house, he had abandoned his parents. She said he had let his wife brainwash him. She said he had disowned his family. Of course, she did not mention a single word about kicking us out. Not the storage closet. Not the years we paid for everything. In her story, I became an evil daughter-in-law who manipulated her husband into cutting off his parents as soon as she got money. She even wrote, I'm old now. I don't ask for anything. I only hoped my kids would have a little bit of heart. But it turns out, my oldest son, now living in luxury, is capable of letting thugs harass his parents in their own home without lifting a finger. I read the message and laughed, though the laugh stuck in my throat. Anyone reading that would feel sorry for her? Less than 10 minutes later, Alex's phone started ringing. Uncles, aunts, distant relatives we barely saw. Some spoke softly. Alex, family issues should be solved by talking. It wasn't easy for your parents to raise you. Others were harsher. As the older brother, how can you leave Ian with such huge debts? How can you sleep at night? Someone even sent me a direct message. Wow. Kate, what an evil person you are. Money really went to your head. Karma will get you for this. I showed it to Alex, reading it. His face turned ice cold. But I grabbed his hand to stop him. Don't answer them yet. Let your mom vent. He looked at me with concern. You're going to put up with this? I nodded. I put up with it for years. I can put up with it for a couple more hours. Let her walk right off the cliff herself. I spent the whole day giving absolutely no explanations. Gail, seeing that we were not responding, became emboldened. She sent photos of the debt collectors in front of the old house. She sent a photo of Arthur sitting with his head down, with a heartbreaking caption. This is what parents have to endure when their oldest son turns his back on them. Some relatives began agreeing with her. They called Alex cruel. They criticized me for being a heartless daughter-in-law. I sat down at my computer and opened all the folders I had kept for 6 years. Excel sheets with bills, electricity, water, groceries, medicina, roof repairs, painting, wiring, images of transfer receipts, invoices for building materials, audio recordings where Gail begged Alex to pay off Ian's debts, screenshots where she wrote, "Help your brother. I'll figure it out later." Everything was right there in front of my eyes, clear, undeniable. That evening, while the family chat was still active, I sent a single PDF file with a short note. To all our relatives, with your permission, I've attached a breakdown of our expenses for the 6 years we lived in my in-laws' house. I'm sending this not to demand anything, but so everyone has the full picture before passing judgment. After that, I sent the spreadsheet, monthly expenses, renovation costs, Ian's debts that we paid off, and a total sum that scared even me when I saw it again. The chat, which had been exploding moments before, fell silent. I continued sending proof. The invoice for waterproofing, the new AC unit, the electrical panel replacement, the dining room china cabinet, the expenses for the room they wanted to turn into Ian's bridal suite. Then I uploaded old screenshots from Gail. Alex, transfer me $300. Ian needs it. Don't tell your father. I'll pay you back. This house is going to Ian anyway, but right now, as the older brother, you need to step up. To top it off, I sent the voice note from the night before we moved out. Arthur's voice was clearly audible. This house will eventually be left to Ian anyway. You need to know your place. Then came Gail's voice, offering us 2 options: move into the storage closet, or rent a place somewhere else. I did not add another comment. The truth was too heavy on its own. Dead silence fell over the family group chat. The same people who had crucified us earlier did not send a single pathetic message. About 10 minutes later, Arthur's older brother initiated a group call. He probably did not realize his microphone was unmuted for everyone who joined. His tone was sharp. Gail, you milked your daughter-in-law dry, and you still had the nerve to kick her out. The fact that your son and she aren't demanding money from you is already a miracle. Stop playing the victim. Gail immediately called me directly. As soon as I answered, I heard a scream. How dare you humiliate your mother-in-law like this? Do you want the whole family to despise me? I put the phone on speaker so Alex could hear. I answered slowly. I only showed the truth. The only person afraid of the truth is someone who did something wrong. She choked on her words, then started insulting me. A snake, a calculating witch, a daughter-in-law who kept receipts just to plot revenge. That was when Alex took the phone. His voice was cutting. Mom, from today on, if anyone insults my wife again, they will deal with my lawyers. My patience is gone. Absolute silence fell on the other end. Gail probably never thought Alex would dare say something like that. Neither did the family. For years, Alex had always been the mediator, the one who lowered his head to keep the peace. But when a person who has endured too much finally stands up, no one can force them back to their knees with tears. After that night, Gail lost whatever support she had left. The calls demanding explanations stopped. A few relatives even sent me private apologies. Kate, I'm sorry. I really didn't know you had to carry all that on your shoulders. I read those messages and did not feel triumphant. I only felt relief. Finally, they stopped forcing us to stay quiet, while others twisted the truth. That same evening, Sarah sent me a short text. Kate, I need to talk to you. It's about Ian. If I don't tell you now, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I stared at the message for a long time. My intuition told me my husband's family was about to take another hit, and this time, it would not be because of me. The next morning, I met Sarah in a small coffee shop near my office. Before the meeting, I had serious doubts. Sarah used to look down on me. She had silently benefited from how her future in-laws mistreated us. I did not hate her enough to wish her harm, but I was not generous enough to wipe the slate clean either. Sarah arrived on time. She was not wearing her usual makeup, just a plain white button-down shirt. She had noticeable dark circles under her eyes. Sitting down, she placed a stack of papers in front of me. Along with a phone showing several open chats, she got straight to the point. Kate, I need to know the truth. Not to defend anyone. At the end of the day, I was going to marry him, but the closer the date gets, the more I feel like a complete idiot who is played by his entire family. She pushed the phone toward me. On the screen were messages from Ian. Sent months ago. He bragged that the old house would eventually go to him. He said his parents loved him the most. He said his older brother was just there temporarily and would move out soon. He even wrote, "My mom already booked the second-floor master bedroom for us. Once Alex and Kate move out, it's a done deal." Reading that, I clenched my fists. Sarah kept scrolling. Ian had also promised that, after the wedding, Alex would help them buy a car so they would not lose face in front of Sarah's family. He wrote, "My brother is a manager. He's raking in cash. And Kate is a lead accountant. Our family is loaded. Don't worry. If you marry me, you'll never want for anything." I read it all and felt a mix of disgust and amusement. We had never promised him anything like that. Helping Ian buy a car had never even crossed our minds. I put the phone down and looked at Sarah. "Everything Ian told you about our financial situation is a lie. We remodeled that room ourselves. We paid for almost all the furniture. And as for cars or money after the wedding, let me be very clear. That promise was never made." Sarah went quiet. She stared at me for a long time, as if trying to decide whether I was speaking out of resentment or telling the truth. I did not bother with long explanations. I grabbed my phone and showed her photos of invoices, remodeling estimates, bank statements, and old WhatsApp messages with the contractor. I also showed her the same PDF I had sent to the family group chat. Every number, every date, every expense item was clear. Sarah read it all, and her face turned pale. After a moment, she laughed. But it sounded like she was about to cry. So his whole family put on a show to deceive me and my relatives. And here I thought I sounded like a gold digger when I started asking about the house. Turns out I was just trying to dodge the ditch they had already rolled out a red carpet over. I said nothing. I did not feel sorry for Sarah, but I understood what it meant to become a spectator in the drama of your own life. Before leaving, Sarah looked at me. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Thank you, Kate. I know my behavior was wrong, but I'll handle this problem myself." That very evening, Sarah brought her parents to Gail's house. I was not there, but Alex got a call from one of his uncles who lived nearby. Later, Sarah also sent me an audio recording. The house, which had been decorated with lanterns and ribbons for the wedding, was now stacked with cake boxes and trays of engagement gifts. Overnight, it turned into a courtroom. Isabella slammed a stack of IOUs, screenshots, and evidence onto the table. She did not beat around the bush. "Gail, I'm not here today to discuss wedding prep. I'm here to ask how long your family was planning to lie to my daughter." Gail panicked. "Isabella, what are you talking about? The kids are getting married. If there's some misunderstanding, we can talk it out. Young men make mistakes sometimes." Sarah, standing behind her mother with red eyes and an icy voice, said, "One mistake can be forgiven, Gail, but your family lied from minute one. You lied about the house. You lied about the room. You lied about the money. You lied about Ian's debts. Ian jumped up, turning red. Don't cross the line. Sarah, you want to call off the wedding because you realized my house isn't what you imagined. You're such a gold digger. Without saying a word, Sarah stepped forward and slapped Ian across the face in front of both families. The sound echoed through the entire living room. She pointed a finger at him. Her voice shook, but it was firm. Being broke isn't shameful. What is disgusting is being dead broke and pretending to be rich. You're drowning in debt. And you're trying to drag others down with you. You don't love me. You only needed a prop, so your little window display would look perfect. Gail rushed to grab Sarah's arm, completely in tears. Please, sweetie, have pity on Ian. He just lost his way. When you get married, I'll set him straight myself. If you dump him now, you'll ruin his life. Sarah pulled away in disgust. If you love your son so much, then keep him. I have zero obligation to ruin my life for your spoiled brat. Isabella called off the engagement right then and there. They would handle returning any upfront deposits themselves. As for the deceit and hidden debts, she warned that they would consider legal action. After clearing everything up, Sarah's family left the house. The door slammed shut, taking with it the wedding Gail had used as an excuse to kick us out of our home. Gail fell to her knees on the floor, slapping her thighs, crying and screaming my name, even though I was not there. She kept repeating, "This is all Kate's fault. She destroyed this family. She ruined Ian's happiness. If she had just compromised, if she hadn't shown all those papers, Sarah's family wouldn't have acted like this." But this time, no one defended her. Arthur, who for years preferred to stay silent, suddenly slammed his fist on the table. His voice sounded hoarse. "Shut up already. You enabled him his whole life until it came to this, and you still have the nerve to blame others. He has debts. He's a liar. He forged my signature. You knew everything. And you covered for him. This family didn't fall apart because of Kate. It fell apart because you chose to look the other way and pretend nothing was happening." Gail froze. Ian stood in the middle of the living room, the red mark from the slap still on his cheek. His eyes darted back and forth like a cornered animal. The old house, which only yesterday had been preparing to become a palace for newlyweds, was now drowning in IOUs, tears, and returned wedding gifts that had not even been opened. On my end, after listening to the audio Sarah sent me, I silently put my phone down. I did not feel the victory I had imagined. I only confirmed that karma works very quietly. Someone might use a wedding to kick other people out of their house, but they will never be able to build a family on a foundation of lies. I knew perfectly well that the collapse of my husband's family would not stop there. After Sarah's family called off the wedding, Ian practically lost his mind. He was a man used to his mother pulling his chestnuts out of the fire, used to making mistakes while someone else fixed them, used to racking up debts while someone else paid them, used to embarrassing himself while his mother cried in his place. In the end, he completely snapped. In a matter of days, his fiancée dumped him. Her family cut all contact. The loan sharks kept harassing him. The relatives stopped covering for him. Ian was incapable of admitting that all this was the consequence of his own actions. He needed a scapegoat. And obviously, the choice fell on us. One evening, around 9 o'clock, while I was pruning some plants in the living room, the video intercom screen lit up. Outside the gates, Ian was stumbling around in a wrinkled shirt, his face flushed from alcohol. Behind him stood 3 of his buddies, looking no better. One of them was holding up a smartphone. Ian pointed straight at the front door of my house and started screaming in the middle of the usually quiet street. "Alex, Kate, come out. Of course. Now that you're rich, you hide in your mansion." I froze. Our gated community was extremely quiet. The neighbors valued their peace highly. Ian's yelling was so disruptive that lights turned on in nearby houses. Alex walked out of his home office, looked at the camera, and his face instantly darkened. The neighborhood security guard approached and asked Ian to leave. Ian refused. He snatched the phone from his friend, started a live stream on social media, and pointed the camera at himself. Look, everybody, this $2 million house belongs to my brother. My brother has it made, but he'd rather let thugs harass his little brother and let our parents cry all day. I felt a sudden chill in my hands. It was not fear, it was outrage. I'm so strong that my whole body cramped. How could someone have so little decency that he would show up drunk at someone else's house and turn his own misery into a circus act? Ian kept going. If my brother is so rich, why won't he pay my debts? $150,000 is chump change to you. Alex, I am your own flesh and blood. Do you have a single drop of humanity left? Alex did not open the gates. He did not go out to argue. Like Ian expected, he called the head of neighborhood security, then the local police precinct, then his lawyer, whom he had already spoken to. Seeing this, I felt a deep calm. In the past, every conflict made us back down to keep the peace. This time, Alex did not retreat. He did not answer yelling with yelling. He used the right weapons, the law, and evidence. When the police arrived, Ian became even more theatrical. He sat on the curb, pounding his chest and sobbing. I just came to ask my brother for help. I'm not causing a scene. My brother is rich. He lives in a massive house, and I'm going to get killed over my debts. Is it normal for an older brother to act like this? Some neighbors watched from a distance. Some recorded on their phones. Security asked them to keep their distance. But the noise had already shattered the quiet night. Alex's lawyer arrived not long after. He wore a crisp white shirt, carried a briefcase, and stepped out of his car with total confidence. At that exact moment, Alex opened the pedestrian gate and walked out. I stood right behind him. Seeing us, Ian jumped up, thinking he had finally gotten his way. Scared people are gonna find out what kind of piece of trash you are. Alex did not flinch. He handed a folder to one of the police officers. Officer, I want to file a report for disturbing the peace, invasion of privacy, and defamation broadcast live on the internet. Here are threatening messages, call logs, and a flash drive with security footage showing Ian and his friends repeatedly coming to my property to cause a scene. Hearing that, Ian's face dropped. He moved as if he wanted to lunge and snatch the folder. But his friend held him back. The lawyer immediately stepped in. Ian, all your actions tonight are being recorded. The more you lose your temper, the more you damage your legal standing. Maybe because of the alcohol. Ian could not keep his mouth shut anymore. He turned to Alex and screamed. Do you think I wanted to come here? Mum saw me. She told me to come and cause a scene. She said you are terrified of bad PR. And that you'd end up paying. She said that since you have such an expensive house, you must have money. She told me to bring people and film it. Then you'd give me cash just to shut me up. That confession froze the air. I saw Alex turn to stone. His shoulders tensed. The front cameras, security cameras, and neighbors' cell phones captured every single word. Just then, a taxi pulled up. Gail scrambled out. Her hair was a mess, and her face was pale as wax. Someone must have tipped her off. And she had rushed over. She walked straight to Ian, grabbed his arm, and hissed. You are drunk. What nonsense are you talking about? Let's go. Let's go home. Don't stand here. But Ian was too drunk to stop. He yanked his arm away and pointed at her. But you told me to. Your brother bought a $1.2 million house. He definitely has cash. You go cause a scene. You told me. Then I'll start crying. And he'll definitely soften up. Now you're pretending none of it happened. I looked at Gail. The woman who used tears to blackmail us. The woman who mobilized relatives to tear me down. Now she stood frozen in the middle of the street. Under the astonished stares of strangers, Alex turned to his mother. His voice was barely audible, but every word weighed a ton. So after everything, You still only see me as an open wallet. Gail shook her head frantically. No. That's not true. Alex, I didn't mean that. I only wanted to save your brother. I never thought he would go this far. I stepped forward and looked her in the eyes. This time, I was not shaking. Months ago, you kicked us out into the street. Gail, now you send people to put on this circus at our house. You call that saving a son? What do you call us? Are we not human beings? Gail opened her mouth, but no answer came out. Around us, neighbors were still recording. By then, Ian began to sober up a little. His face grew paler and paler. He looked at the cops, the lawyer, and Alex. Suddenly, he seemed to realize he had tied the noose around his own neck. In a panic, he turned to Alex and started begging. Alex, please. I was drunk. I didn't know what I was saying. Drop the charges. We're family. Alex looked at him. Then he looked at his mother. A long silence passed before he answered. Exactly, because we are family. I put up with this for too long. But starting today, whoever makes the mess pays the price. He signed the police report. The stroke of his pen was so firm you could almost hear it scratching the paper. In that moment, I knew he was not only signing a report, it was the first time Alex had drawn a line in the sand to protect our own family. Instead of letting himself be dragged down by blood ties that blinded him, and it was the first time Gail realized her tears no longer worked on her son. After that night, nothing could go back to the way it was. The police called Ian in several times. Since there was no serious physical harm, the matter ended with him signing a restraining order and a legally binding agreement. He could not come near us, he could not cause scenes, he could not defame us on social media. The day he signed that document, Alex came home very late. He did not say much. He sat on the porch for a long time, staring into space, as if he had shed a massive weight from his past. However, that signed document did not bring peace to the old house. The loan sharks never stopped harassing them. Sometimes, they spent the whole day at the gates. Sometimes, they taped collection notices to the front door. The neighbors started gossiping openly. The same people who used to tell Gail how lucky she was to have successful kids now shook their heads when they saw her. Sarah's family completely severed ties. Isabella sent people to pick up the gifts and demanded refunds for the catering deposit and other expenses they had been supposed to split. I was told that day, Gail locked herself in her room for the entire evening. The woman who valued appearances above everything else ended up losing the only thing she cared about, her reputation. Arthur visibly aged. He used to be a man of few words, but still retained a patriarchal aura. After the scandal, you barely heard a sound from him. The house they thought they could mortgage in a day to pay off Ian's debts never got the loan. With open invoices under Alex's name and the constant harassment from debt collectors, no bank dared to approve it. And Ian, without a wedding, humiliated in front of friends, seemed to lose his way completely. His drinking and gambling buddies vanished the moment they saw he was broke. It became increasingly difficult for him to find even unstable odd jobs. An acquaintance told me once that they saw him smoking alone on the patio of a dive bar. Noticeably thinner, with red, sleep-deprived eyes. I did not feel happy hearing that. At the end of the day, he was my husband's brother, but some mistakes must be paid for by the person who made them. The second-floor room that caused so much uproar ended up becoming an attic. It was piled high with boxes of returned gifts, suits that were never worn, and decorative garlands that were never hung. A neighbor once told me about it when we ran into each other at an intersection. Oh, Kate, it is so cold in that room now. When you guys were there, it always looked so cozy. I only replied with a faint smile. Then, one late afternoon toward the end of the year, the setting sun was illuminating my blooming bougainvilleas. The intercom at the gate rang again. I looked at the screen and saw Gail on the other side of the bars. There was no trace of the arrogant woman she once was. She wore a worn brown cardigan. Her hair was tied back in a messy ponytail. In Hiahen, She held a pharmacy bag. It had only been a little over a month, but she looked as if she had aged 10 years. She stood there for a long time, as if she did not know where to begin. Finally, she called my phone. Kate, I was wrong. Can I come in and talk to you? I looked at her through the intercom. I felt something strange. I was no longer overcome by rage. Like the day we were kicked out, I was not overwhelmed by sorrow. Like the night we packed our suitcases, I was exhausted, tired of everything we had gone through, tired of years trying to find my place in her family. Only to walk out wounded. Alex walked out of the kitchen, seeing me standing silently by the screen. He asked softly, "Do you want to see her?" I shook my head. Not because I hated her so much that I could not look at her face, but because I realized there are distances that, once created, can never be erased. Forgiving does not mean returning to the place where you were hurt. Alex thought for a second. He took out his phone and called his mother. Standing next to him, I heard her voice tremble. "Alex, I know I was wrong. Your father and I are left alone in the whole world. Can we move in with you? I swear, I will never bother your wife again." Alex closed his eyes. He took a deep breath, then he answered with calmness that held neither resentment nor affection. "Whatever you and Dad need for medicine or food, I will pay for it. That is my duty as a son. But you cannot come live with us." "Mom." Sobs echoed from the receiver. "Do you really have the conscience to abandon your mother?" "Alex." I saw Alex's knuckles turn white from gripping the phone so tightly. It hurt him too. At the end of the day, she was his mother. But after everything we had been through, he only replied in a muted tone, "I'm not abandoning you. Mom, you were the one who kicked us out first." Then he hung up without argument and without further explanation. Gail stood by the gates for a long time. I watched her through the camera until she wiped her tears, turned around, and walked away slowly. Her silhouette grew smaller and smaller down the tree-lined avenue. I suddenly remembered the day we left the old house, dragging our suitcases in the middle of the night, with heavy hearts. Today, the sun was shining beautifully, a light breeze was blowing, and yet, something inside me had broken and would never be the same again. I walked out into the small front garden and adjusted one of the bougainvilleas that had leaned over. Alex came out and stood next to me. Neither of us spoke. Only the rustling of leaves in the wind could be heard. Then I realized something. What I had been searching for all these years was not a massive mansion. It was not winning a battle against my husband's family. The only thing I needed was a place where I did not have to live in fear. A place where I did not have to guess other people's moods just to know whether I would have peace that day. I had finally found that place,